2015 wasn't a fantastic year for a non-sequel anime. While the sequels to already beloved shows expanded upon their already existing properties in the best ways possible, the original content 2015 had to offer was relatively lackluster. There was nothing from the year that is something I call amazing or groundbreaking. However, there were quite a few above-average shows which are all enjoyable in their own right. Sure, from the mythical objective standpoint, none are perfect, but that doesn't mean they're bad at all. So without further ado, let's go over the top 10 anime that defined 2015 for me. I can practically see the comments right now. Wow, this must have been a really bad year if she's putting a magical school light novel adaptation on this list. Well, it is true that this is a dime a dozen light novel adaptation, but honestly, this was the biggest surprise of the year for me. The only reason I checked it out in the first place was to compare it to the Asterisk War, and you all know my feelings about that, since they both have very similar first episodes. As I watched the premiere and continued watching though, I was taken aback by how funny it was, how there was legit chemistry between its two romantic leads, and how an actual romance developed because the show ditched the will they won't they crap every other romance has. The animation and direction are also really good, especially during the action scenes, which are all well handled and are actually suspenseful. You can tell that, given the source material, the team behind this anime were actually trying to make a good show, and they pretty much succeeded. Now, is it a fantastic anime? No, it's not. But for what it is, it's definitely the best of its kind, and I really enjoyed watching it. I'm not sure if people consider this show controversial, or good or bad, or average, or whatever, but for what it's worth, I really liked Assassination Classroom. I loved its insights on the problems of education, the cast is charming, the jokes are pretty hilarious, and the presentation is so bright and colorful it's hard not to pay attention to it. Yeah, it does suffer from the issue of not having an ending in sight, and I kinda doubt Season 2 will rectify that, but it's the journey that matters, and the journey in Assassination Classroom is really fun. It also has one of the most addictive and exciting finales I've seen in quite some time. I recommend it for people who are sick of typical high school anime and just need a fun show to watch. I am typically not a fan of romance anime. Most of the time the romances just feel spontaneous, and no matter how many bishonen you toss in my face, you can't get me invested into a shallow love story. When the romance is only part of a larger story, however, it can add to a story if done well. That is where Yona of the Dawn comes in. It's a perfect combination of romance, action, adventure, suspense, pretty animation, and that soundtrack is beautiful. It also features one of the better female protagonists of recent years in a not fully realized but still engaging fantasy world. So what keeps it from the top? Well, once my initial reaction to it being brilliant wore off, I can't say that it left as big an impact as it did before, but again, it's still a really good show. Talk about a show that started out as one of my favorites of the year but then fell off a steep cliff. The first half of this show is so good, offering a psychological experience that keeps you on the edge of your seat. I will never forget how the cliffhangers tortured me every week. The characters are intriguing, the animation is solid, the story is tight and nicely paced, and I always found myself excited to see more. The second half wasn't as exciting, but it was still interesting and took the story into different directions I didn't expect, until the ending happened. This show wraps up with a huge cop-out ending that doesn't explain anything. Even so, the journey is really interesting, and the ending isn't as bad as, say, Rosario plus Vampire or any of the other never-ending stories. I recommend it for fans of psychological horror and interesting ideas about the nature of humanity. This is a show that I did not expect to like as much as I did, based on my own personal tastes. I'm normally kind of a prude, in case you haven't noticed. However, Shimoneta showed me that I should probably lighten up a bit, mainly due to how it depicts the evils of censorship and how prurient themes can actually be handled thoughtfully. Not to mention the hilariously outlandish characters, especially Anna and Ayame, and all the antics of Socks were extremely fun to watch. Could the intentionally bad jokes be grating at times? Sure. Is it unfinished? Yeah, but for what it is, an ecchi comedy that's more satire than stereotypical, I liked this show, and it actually made me think about censorship's roles in society. If you take this show seriously as a parody of a superhero genre or as a serious superhero show, you'd be wrong in both of those expectations. While there are sprinkles of the former, the latter isn't really present at all. One Punch Man is an action comedy through and through and manages to provide some of the most mind-blowingly awesome action scenes you'll ever see in an anime. The characters are also extremely fun, with my personal favorites being Genos and Saitama, and the comedy is absolutely hilarious. If you're looking for an awesome action show with a great sense of humor, humor, look no further, but anything beyond that is giving the show a bit too much credit. Recommended for all fans of superheroes, as well as anyone who likes a good action anime. Well, if there was any show that split the anime community down the middle, it'd definitely be this one. There were huge debates over whether this show is brilliant or stupid, meaningful or pretentious, or metaphorical or obnoxious. Well, I'm on the side that this show is brilliant. Yuri Kuma is one of the most original anime of 2015 with its quirky characters and satire of society and cultural animation. It is one of the few shows from this year that basically had me invested from start to finish because of its subtle character writing and overall weird atmosphere courtesy of its famous director. Or infamous director, depending on your opinion of him. This is not for everyone, and I know that people will probably have major problems with this show, but I think you should check it out if you want a unique experience that can't be adequately described, but only witnessed. From the get-go, I strangely knew that I would like Food Wars, even though I had barely heard anything about it. There was something about it that just said, HS is going to like this one. Normally, when I just follow my intuition, it either ends up disastrously or extraordinarily well, and in this case, it was pretty much the latter. Some may disagree and say that this is just a typical soon-to-be-forgotten shonen anime. Well, from my experience, when I think of memorable anime from 2015, I always think of this show. I remember the characters, I remember the epic food battles, I remember the small subtleties that were unexpected but welcome. I remember the character designs, the music, and just how much fun I had watching it. It's the perfect example of a show that knows what it is, what it wants to be, and delivers its content the best it can. There are only a few pieces of media that are able to remind me of the simpler days as a child, though strangely enough most are sagas. The original Star Wars trilogy and The Force Awakens, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Harry Potter, and now Magic Kaito 1412. Watching this show legitimately felt magical, with its incredibly fun characters, enjoyable episodic format that makes you feel like you're watching a Saturday morning cartoon, genuine romantic chemistry between the two lead characters, and a sense of fun and innocence that is so rare in today's age of edgy and dark shonen anime. It may not be the most mature anime out there, but it's definitely a standout this year. There are probably going to be a lot of people who will be upset with me for putting this show at number 1. They'll probably say, oh, that Studio Bone show that everyone hyped up to the extreme that turned out kinda okay but really messy? Why is this number 1? Well, the best thing I can say to those people is to make their own list, but that's besides the point. Kekkai Sensen is my favorite anime of 2015 because it's one of the few shows this year that actually felt like it was trying, and it succeeded. I watched a lot of perfunctory and only made for the money shows this year, and most of the shows that tried to be original all turned out pretty terribly, and the thought that anime is delving down this path scares me. Where's the artistry, the imagination, or the scale? All factors that make anime great. Well, despite not being a perfect anime, in fact it's far from one, Kekkai Sensen managed to deliver on that front, while also offering an engaging story and characters. I laughed at the hilarious situations the characters got into, I sat on the edge of my seat during all the action scenes, and I felt emotional when it mattered. It's not incredibly deep or complex, and it can be a bit of an acquired taste at times, but if you're looking for a great anime from 2015, this is probably the one to watch. Well, those are my top 10 favorite non-sequel anime of 2015, and so ends my Anime of 2015 series. I hope you enjoyed it, and wait, the next month is February, and you all know what that means! I just came up with another February special! Figure it out, February! I'll see you then.